notification of the closed session with the following statement. The following resolution is required following closed session or section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia. Per the Freedom of Information Act requirements, a roll call vote is required. So here's the resolution. Be it resolved that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements, and only such matters as were identified in the motion to go into closed session were heard, discussed, or considered. I enter that as a motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye. We're going to have a roll call vote on this, but if you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We should take a roll call vote. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That motion passes and we are out of closed session. And we'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now if you would join me in a moment of silence for whatever personal introspection you might like to consider. So just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First item on the agenda is introduction of a new town manager in Buchanan. I believe
I'm going to.
Supervisor White is going to handle this.
So if you'd like to join me down here, Angela. So usually when I'm talking about Buchanan, I'm announcing a festival or a fair or something fun activity that I want everybody to come to. But I have even better, bigger, and wonderful news today. We are so happy to introduce our new town manager. Angela Lawrence was hired on, let me see what date, August 12th, the magic date in Buchanan. We have been without a full-time town manager for several number of months. And we did a national search that was conducted by the Berkeley Group, the town did. And we're so happy to find Angela. And she comes to us with a lot of experience in Virginia and outside of Virginia as in local government. I'm going to read some of her qualifications. She has a Bachelor of Science degree from Kansas State University, a Master's of Business Administration with Public Institution Management concentration from the University of Texas at Arlington. She is a member of the International City County Management Association and the Virginia Local Government Management Association. She's an active volunteer with several community organizations, including Southern Shenandoah chapter of the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. That, along with volunteerism, means you will fit in extremely well in Buchanan. She's also been very successful in her career. She's secured and administered grants for community improvements, facilities, managing water and wastewater upgrades, stormwater improvements, and other infrastructure projects. She has historically built strong staff teams and successfully been responsible in helping develop and implement town budgets and capital improvement programs. And she and I have just talked briefly. We haven't had a chance to really get together yet. We have coffee or lunch coming up soon. And she said what I feel that we really want to work together, have the county and the town as partners and support that town in their endeavors. So I introduce you to our Board of Supervisors. Many of our public constituents are here, and we welcome you so much. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
happy to
you.
be here.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Angela, welcome. you bring extraordinary qualifications, so we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I'm
And-
happy to be here and look forward to working with the county and appreciate the reach. Several administration folks have reached out to me already. So
Well, it's a good arrangement. Buchanan is a fun place and a progressive place, so you'll enjoy it and you'll be challenged. So welcome.
thank you.
Glad to have
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is citizen comment period, and this is comments on agenda items only. Any citizens have anything you'd like to share? Here's one. Okay, this is not, the topic is county assessment. That's not on our agenda. So at the conclusion of the meeting, at the conclusion of today's meeting, we'll have another citizen comment period for items not on the agenda. That's where this one would fall. So we'll postpone this until toward the end of the meeting. Next item is consent agenda. Have the board members had the opportunity to review the consent agenda? And so do I hear a motion?
Motion move. Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as published in our agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The consent agenda is approved. And next we have 1, 2, 3 items all associated with finance. And I'll ask Ms. Davis to come forward and guide us through these items. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Can you guys hear me okay? The first item is approval of transfers and additional appropriations. So for the month of September, there are 2 transfer requests. The first is for the transfer of budgeted debt service funds to the capital project fund, and the second is a recurring quarterly transfer. And regarding appropriation requests, there are 8 items. 8 pass-through items, and these include expenditure reimbursements, miscellaneous receipts and fees, contributions, grant funds, and an appropriation for 3 discrete funds. We request that these transfers and appropriations be approved by the board. Are there any questions I can answer at this time?
Board member questions? Transfers and additional appropriations. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Been moved and seconded that we approve transfers and additional appropriations as published. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is approved. And Ms. Davis, you can proceed.
Okay, the next item is for approval of accounts payable for the month of September, for which the total expenditures being requested for approval is $1,294,720.12. Got to include the cents. Notable disbursements for the month are first for technology services, $213,481 paid to SHI International for Microsoft Office 365 cloud-based subscription annual renewal. For regional organizations, there was $51,370 paid to Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge for the second quarter partnership payment for FY25. And last, under transfers to EDA, there was $75,530 paid to the Botetourt EDA for Greenfield Development Services. Are there any questions at this time related to the accounts payable for this month?
There's no questions. I'll move for approval.
Second.
The moved and seconded that we approve. Any discussion? Please indicate your concurrence by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. And next item is consideration of consider approval of supplemental appropriation to fund projects not completed in FY24, improve them to proceed into FY25 budget, basically. Ms. Davis?
Correct. Yes, so essentially this would be a rollover from FY24 into FY25 related to inmate phone commissions, which is a discrete fund. So the sheriff's office has requested that those funds be transferred as soon as possible in order to continue with the projects that they have tagged that money for.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. So for discussion, is it just my imagination or is this list a whole lot shorter than usual?
You will see a much longer list. This is sort of ahead of the typical rollover requests that you'll see each year. Again, it was a timing issue. They had a need to move forward with it. And being that it is discrete funds, it has to be used for specific purposes. It's not as if they don't use this, that goes back into the pot, so to speak, which is the normal process for considering rollover requests.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the supplemental appropriations, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Next is the VDOT monthly report. Afternoon,
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me again this month.
you bet.
So for our monthly report or monthly update, our contractors continue with their resurfacing contracts in Botetourt County. As far as traffic engineering work orders, the one that's listed here, I did mention to you last month, but I wanted to let you know that it was installed a couple of weeks ago, last week, I think. For Ms. White, for the Route 11 speed limit, you did ask me to go back and talk to them about that. Robin and I did both. Robin spoke with our assistant district traffic engineer, and he stated that he looked at it several times over the last few years and just still didn't see a reason to change it. There's been no significant development, no changes along the route. No changes to the roadside condition. So right now they just don't feel that it would be appropriate to change it without some changes in condition or data.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As for our land development projects, we have several on the list that are in review. For permits, we had 7 utility, 4 private entrances, and 1 maintenance of traffic and 1 temporary construction entrance to start some construction on a project. For our residency projects, the Blue Ridge Drive and Oak Drive is coming along pretty well. We hope to have that done this week. Then we'll move along to the cul-de-sac that we had the drainage issue in. We'll hope to get to that on Monday. The rain that's coming this week may slow us down a little bit, but we have every intention of getting on that one as soon as this one's complete. As far as planned maintenance work, we're, again, as typical this time of year, grading gravel roads, for completing some mowing. We know that some of the rain we've got near the end of the summer really made the grass shoot up. So we're hitting that with our contractors now, doing secondary mowing with our forces, doing ditching on several routes, prepping for gravel roads. And as we were talking to other staff here earlier, we're always preparing for snow. So we're starting our dry runs for that and trying to get contractors on board to help us out for the year. Still hoping for no snow, but better to be prepared than not. Other than that, that's all I really have this month, unless you have specific questions about the agenda or if you have anything that you need me to address for you.
We'll start with Blue Ridge. Anything?
We're good in Blue Ridge. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Castle.
Still got that sign at McKinney Hollow and Soldiers Retreated. Actually, it's just kind of dangling there.
Yeah, and I asked Robin might be able to answer that quicker than me, but we did reach out to our sign guy about that, and I think you responded back that wasn't our sign, right? Yeah. They went out and checked it, and they thought it was actually across into the other jurisdiction.
It's actually in Botetourt.
We can go out and drive it ourselves, but
Yeah.
And our sign guy, usually if we ask him to fix something, he's right on it. So there's a reason why he hadn't if he hasn't. So he either thinks it's not ours or thinks it's a private sign, but we'll figure it out. Yeah.
citizen called me the other day, and I really never paid that much attention to it, but as you're sweeping across the bridge on 220 over Craig's Creek,
Mm-hmm.
there at Eagle Rock, it looks like the pavement's starting to give way on the north end of the bridge. Pretty nasty holes starting to occur in there. So you might want to take a quick peek at that. But that's it. Everything else is good.
Good deal. Thank you.
How about Valley District?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Blevins, I want to tell you, and I want to tell the board here also. Do you remember when we had in Highland Manor that sinkhole or that excavation basically of the road that happened, that we almost lost a few cars? But, you know, they attended to it. They got to it pretty quick. Everybody was fine. Well, we had the same situation up on Highland Manor in Sierra. And it looks like it might have been a utility problem that happened, and it started sinking down. It went an inch, couple inches, and now I have no idea how far it is. But I called Brian as soon as I had seen just a little bit of movement. Within, I would say 45 minutes, they had people out there putting cones up. So thank you very much. I wanted to appreciate the attention to this and the speed of attention you had.
You're very welcome. I apologize for not answering your call, but I was indisposed, but I did respond back to you by text.
Yes, absolutely. Do we know anything further on that?
The last we checked is that we felt like, but we believe it's a water line leak with Aqua, and they've been doing some work in the area. They've had several issues that we've been working with them on with some leaks. We think that the issue that we have over on the other cul-de-sac with the drainage issue is also a leak, or at least a leak plus some subsurface drainage issues. But we're working with them before we actually do any major repairs on it, just to make sure that they get all of them fixed, because we don't want it to come back. So. That's right. So they pressure tested and they found that the pressure's dropping, not just holding steady. So there's other leaks there. So they have some things to fix.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for sharing that. Anything else? from
No,
Valley?
that's it. Thank you.
How about Buchanan?
Springer Trail.
Unfortunately, we were just talking about that. We put the contract for bid, included Fringer, a road in Botetourt and a road in Craig on it. We got 0 bids. No bids for anybody that want to do our surface treatment. So we're looking at other ways to deliver that, either with our forces or our on-call contract. We have to get special permission to make that happen. But because the contract's not really set up for that. But we're looking at options. We're going to try to do everything we can to do it before winter. But right now, I don't have a good answer for you. We just found out that we didn't get any bids a couple weeks ago. So.
And there's no process for you all to do it.
We could possibly self-deliver, but we would have to probably obtain some equipment from some other areas. We've done it before, usually not with very long roadways for to do the surface treatment. A lot of times we contract that out, but we've got some options, and we'll do everything we can to get it done before winter.
Is there, so I know this is funded through the 6-year plan.
Yes.
If this work does not get done, what does that do to our 6-year plan for next year?
It carries
that money
over.
carry
That
over?
project's what we call under construction. That funding will stay there. It can carry over.
And it
we-
won't impact future projects?
We might get a little red mark in us for not finishing it when we said we're going to finish it, but that's on us. It doesn't do anything with the county, and it won't hurt you. Other projects can still move forward.
Okay, can you keep me posted?
Yes.
As we develop ideas
Yes.
for this? Obviously, the residents are very concerned.
Yes.
About that.
We are too. We really don't want what we did fix to get damaged over the winter either. So we usually, when we start a project, we start it in the summer so we can finish it before winter. So like I said, we're working with our district to see what we can do.
Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. White?
I don't have
Thank you.
anything else. Thank you.
This will become a monthly question from Amsterdam. Progress. It looks like it's good, but can you give us a quick update on the progress out here at this intersection, 220 and International?
Sure. They're moving along. I don't have an exact schedule. I mean, again, like with our work, the rain, the extensive storms that we've got, and then looks like there's a potential tropical storm or something headed our way, maybe later in the week or over the weekend, I mean, that'll slow them down. But to my understanding, they're on schedule. I haven't heard anything otherwise. And anytime they've ever asked us to either stay out of their way or help us with something, we've been trying to help them as much as we can to keep them moving. I can have you a better schedule for next month, or I think Robin's going to be here for me. I have another meeting, but we'll have a better schedule for next month and give you an idea of where we are and when we think it'll be complete. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the report.
Sure.
Next item is approval of a lease in Fincastle. This is, I'll call Mr. Evans forward for that. And in the meantime, if you look around, you'll see refreshing cleanliness and streamlined appearance to this room. And what's missing is those big monstrous chairs that we used to have, and they've all been replaced. And looks much better, to be much more comfortable. So if the room looks different to you, that's the reason. You don't have those big chairs anymore. This also allows us to seat more people, obviously, because these chairs are small. Okay, back to the business at hand. Mr. Evans, lease in Fincastle.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Chairman, board members. I'd like to request approval from the Board of Supervisors to enter into a lease with Richard Clark with a office property located at 5 West Back Street in Fincastle. This property is located directly north or across from Back Street from the Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse. The purpose for the lease is to store the files in the old courthouse so I can demo it as close as possible to the clerk of court's office and the clerks, so they can on a daily basis retrieve those files. So this office building is located, once again, directly behind Back Street, very easily walkable distance. And truthfully, it is about the only reasonable space that's within walking distance that it could be leased. The files are quite heavy, so we had to do a little engineering to make sure they would that the floors could hold it. The floors are rated for 100 pounds per square foot. I estimate approximately 60 pounds per square foot with the files. I've diagrammed all this for the owner and had the owner's approval for the layout of the files. And it's going to be real close to whether they can actually contain all the frequently used files. If not, the extra files could be located in my office area, but that's about as good as we can get it. And these files need to be stored in an alternate location. We are no longer going to try to store them in the old office and hotel. That was never really practical. I'm not sure where that came from. And this will expedite the demoing of the Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse by removing the file from it instead of waiting for the law office and hotel move. The lease is for $13.35 a month, basically $1.67 a square foot.
That's your report?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Evans?
I noticed in the lease, we can't renew it, but we're confident that 18 months will.
No, ma'am, we can renew it. So basically the lease is a sample lease that we haven't quite worked through yet. But with the owner, we want to do 18 months and then we're allowed to go month to month after that. By 18 months from the time we lease it, if there is an extended period to lease it by 6 months to a year, then they are willing to do that as well.
Okay.
So I know this is just a form of lease. It isn't clear to me whether this is triple net or gross or modified gross, or have we not decided which way we're going to go with that?
So the 18-month single payment pay up front is our gross is what we're looking for. Yes, sir.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Looking to pay the entire 18 months up front. Yes, sir. Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you as well.
No, whether it's a triple net lease where we pay everything every month, or and
so
it isn't important, except that it says in one place it's triple net. I believe in other places it says it's modified gross.
So the lease is all inclusive. There it provides all utilities as well. It's all inclusive. Yes, sir.
Okay, triple net. and I'm looking for it now, and I can't find it, but in here, our attorney may be able to, certainly is able to answer this. There's a statement in here that I can't put my finger on, that the lessor it's basically saying that the lessor has, I'm trying to think of how to make this in a short, succinct statement. Basically, it says that any latent defects, I think it's in the indemnification clause, but latent defects, the lessor is indemnified against any damage. That's the long and short of it.
Well, what we put into this, because it is pretty time sensitive, was the initial draft that they submitted to us because we needed to get this out last Thursday. Since then, we've had tentative discussions. We did a lease for this for temporary office space for our economic development department several years ago. And they had Buck Hartwell represent them to negotiate that lease. And Buck and I had negotiated a lease which does not say what this one says. And we've reached sort of a tentative agreement that we'll use Buck's language and just fill in the terms into that, which was an all-inclusive lease that didn't include some of this stuff about our indemnifying left and right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure it addresses what I'm talking about. Basically, it says latent defects, and that could be what worried me is like a leaky roof,
Right.
you know, and that,
Agree to that. As a general proposition, we would not agree to that. As I said, I put into here just the draft language that they sent over. We would not agree to exactly the language that they sent over. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay, so that's kind of a carve out from the basic indemnification. I mean, we are indemnifying him for defects that aren't seen aren't visible at the time of the lease, the way I read it, latent defects.
We would not be indemnifying them for any defects when we actually negotiate, when we actually get down to the bottom line language.
Okay.
This is going to
Okay.
say, generally speaking, counties cannot give indemnification to other people for third party torts or things that they haven't actually themselves caused, because it's taking on the role of waiving your sovereign immunity for torts by third parties. So those types of clauses, I typically would just say a flat no to.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Other questions for Mr. Evans? There are none. I'll move for approval of the lease as presented to us.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the lease, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The lease is approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I think that what I was actually requesting was not approval of the lease itself, but approval of the resolution authorizing entry of a lease, because I don't think that.
Yeah, it's not complete.
We don't
Yeah.
have the final
Correct.
lease.
So there is a resolution there that provides, it's entitled, "A Resolution Authorizing Entry of a Lease for Suites 101 and 103 of the building at 5 West Back Street, Fincastle, Virginia, and related actions."
Right.
And so you'll see that the operative clauses say the board hereby approves a lease with Richard Clark, the owner of the property, for the price of $1,335 per month for a term of 18 months. The county attorney and the county administrator are hereby authorized and directed to negotiate reasonable and customary additional terms of the final lease document, and authorizes the county administrator to execute and deliver the lease, provided that we can reach satisfactory terms. And as I said, going through the same, believe that where we're headed to is that we're going to use the same language that
We'd use
that
previously.
we had used previously when we had leased this same property without any problem for economic development.
The opening sentence does use the word approve, the words approves or lease. Just item number one.
Approves a lease, not the lease.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, all board members see that resolution. Is there any questions or discussion on the resolution? I will modify my motion to say that I move for approval of the resolution contained in our package.
Second.
Been seconded. Now I'll ask for a discussion. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the resolution is approved. And here's, this is a good meeting today. There's lots of nice, exciting things going on, and this is one of them. Item number 10. Sure we have time. Yeah, we do. Consider resolution for Botetourt Town and Country Women's Club Community Improvement Impact Award. And I'll call on Supervisor Scott Horn and Ms. Bradbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could have all those, the women involved in this Botetourt Town and Country women come down here up front. As I'd like to have everybody see who these people really are. Kind of our unsung heroes within Botetourt County. These are women that really put their feet to the pavement to make sure that things are done. We certainly appreciate all they have done. If you take a look at some of their accomplishments within the backpack programs, the food banking, the scholarships that they have gotten for individuals and students within our county, and the outreach that they presently have is just outstanding. I can't say enough about these women. I've had an opportunity to speak with them a couple times and enjoyed it. So first of all, I would first like to have an applause for what they have done and what they're doing and what yet to come for these women. So before I get started, is there anything that you would like to add in some of the things that you guys have done? I know with the time and efforts that you put forth and what I'm going to be talking here in just a second, but some of the things that I haven't talked about, and as you take a look up there, you'll see some of these unsung heroes up on the picture screen up there. So just wonderful, wonderful people. So is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for this recognition. We certainly didn't expect it, but we kind of worked behind the scenes and we try to make a difference in our community, and I think we do that. So
You do a very, very, very good job. So as I come forth to give this proclamation here, Botetourt County recognizes the Botetourt Town and Country Women Club as a recipient of the General Federation of Women's Club Virginia Community Impact Program. Whereas the General Federation of Women's Club is an international women's organization dedicated to community to improvement by enhancing the lives of others through volunteer service, which I would like to find out how many hours of service you guys have put in. And whereas the Botetourt County Country Women's Club is a member of the GFWC Virginia chapter, and whereas the Botetourt Town and Country Women's Club is the recipient of 2024 Community Impact Program Award for their work to help save the Botetourt County Historical Museum from closure. The Community Impact Program Awards are designed to encourage and recognize the positive effects as a club can have on a specific needs in the community. And whereas the club members readied a house built in 1871 to allow the museum to be relocated by cleaning, painting every room, supplying, recycling, packing materials for moving over 6,000 articles. and artifacts. And members prepared food for workers and events held at the museum. And whereas the club also donated and installed a microwave, refrigerator, cabinets, furnishings, and American and Virginia flags, plus members of the club completed and maintained the yard work and sidewalk projects. And whereas the club collaborated with numerous community groups, including the Botetourt Historical Society, the Virginia Department of Transportation, the Botetourt County Sheriff's Office, the Fincastle Town Mayor and Council, Historical Fincastle, the Daughters of American Revolution, the Countywide League of African Americans, Preservation Botetourt, Virginia State Garden Club, and neighbors of Botetourt County. And whereas the money saved on the move funded a full-time museum director. And because of the club's diligent work, not only was the museum moved, but awareness of the museum and the Women's Club through local media partnerships helped increase the membership to the club and the museum, as well as created new long-lasting friendships. Now, therefore, it be resolved that Botetourt County Board of Supervisors does hereby extend our congratulations to the members of the Botetourt Town and Country Women's Club for the prestigious award, and also extend our gratitude for all they do to make our community better. Proclaim this day, the 24th of September, 2024. Thank you again for all your hard work. Thank you so much. The example you guys set forth is a one to build upon.
Yeah, perfect example of grassroots leaders making a difference. And I don't know how many people have been to the museum. I would hope most of you, but you talk about accomplishment that started off being, frankly, sort of improbable to renew and adapt an 1871 house to become a very successful museum. That was a real accomplishment. So this proclamation is well deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there also, there was a few injuries. There's an eye injury that I had got to see from that whole thing. So we took care of that and it went on. So it was just a wonderful place. I hope everybody has an opportunity to go there and just see the accomplishments they have put forth in their efforts that they have done. Thank you so much again.
You care to make this a motion, Dr. Scott?
Yes, I move for the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Once again, thank you for your service to the
Thank
community.
you so much.
You can see where I painted because it's like this. It's in a back room. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by, all in favor of the proclamation, I guess I should say, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation carries. Congratulations. We have a 245 item. This is item number 14. This is a public hearing for consideration to vacate a 20-foot public storm sewer easement located within the 45-foot right-of-way of Boxwood Lane so that the road may be accepted into the secondary system of state highways. And who has this one to discuss? Anybody?
Miss Pendleton.
I snuck
Oh, there
down
you
here.
are.
Chairman. Good afternoon to you and members of the board. This is something that's typically taken care of before the streets are well past a resolution for the streets to be accepted in the secondary state system for VDOT maintenance. And it's just one of these easements that didn't get vacated prior to that. And because now the county is the ownership of the right of way, it requires your vote and approval in order to formally take care of that. So you do have an ordinance in your package seeking the public hearing and then vote in action to vacate that easement. And I will take any questions that you have.
Any questions? I'll move for approval. there a second?
Public
We gotta open the public hearing.
Oh, we have a public hearing. I'm sorry. Nonetheless, are there any questions from board members before I open the public hearing? Public hearing is open. Any members of the public wish to comment on this? Close the public hearing. And is there any further discussion by board members? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the easement relocation or vacation, I should say. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and the storm sewer easement will be vacated. Next item is item number 11, getting to know BOCO.
Right. Good afternoon, Chair and members of Board of Supervisors. We wanted to share just a little communications update with you guys. Let me get to it real quick because we're using a little bit of something different. You just bear with me real quick. So you guys know me, but some of you may not know Jess. So Jessica here came and joined us in March of 2024. So we're very pleased to have her as part of our team. Because we're a two-person team, so we're pretty tiny but mighty. So we launched something this month called Getting to Know BOCO, and we kind of wanted to take you along the journey that we started back in 2021 when I came on board and where we are today. So this is just a little bit about that journey, our strategy, getting to know BOCO, and some of our fave events that we've been able to be a part of that a lot of you all and a lot of our community members have also been a part of. So there's our contact information right there. So it's Tiff and Jess. And this is just some of our journey and our strategy. We wanted to make sure that when I came over here in 2021, that we were going to give equitable opportunities for people to be able to understand what was happening in local government. When I got here, our social media channels, we had a couple different ones. Everything was a little bit kind of, nobody had been kind of steering the ship per se when it came to communications because it's a big beast and it's a big thing to steer. So we wanted to make sure we were using social media to the best of our advantage, also print and traditional. And then we also have all of these community partners and collaborators that we do work with. We developed a communications plan. We've improved our media relations by having a designated public information officer. So that usually lands with me because I have about 30 years of experience with that. So usually I take on all the reporter questions and things like that and kind of the clearinghouse for that. And then we've worked with multiple departments to promote different services and initiatives that we've had. And we started launching some social media on LinkedIn and Nextdoor. We also launched the new website in 2022, making sure that we are accessible to those with vision impairments or anything like that, so they're able to use our website appropriately. We've developed annual reports, we've revamped the state of the county, and we've developed infographic videos. So we've been a little bit busy the past couple years and being able to kind of go through our communications. But I'm going to turn it over to Jessica now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about some of our social media that we've been using and a few of our engagement numbers and how we've had some pretty explosive growth in that area.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh my goodness. Okay. So here on the screen, we're talking about engagement numbers. So this is reaches the amount of people that have seen our content. So since January 1st, we have reached 186,000 people and we've had 17,000 interactions. So this is people who have commented, liked, reacted, shared, or all of those other little things that you can do with the buttons on the screen. So that's pretty cool. And we have nearly tripled our followers since Tiffany started the communications department in 2021. So we currently have 6,045 followers. So that's pretty cool. And then, so some of our top performing content really focuses on telling the story of the community, whether it's different programs that our libraries offer, like our top post this past quarter was about feeding Southwest Virginia, right?
I think it was at the Botetourt food pantry.
Yes. And then we have some other ones like our love sign, our back to school posts, and our what's going on in BOCO community development initiative. So our goal is to really create and share content that showcases what it's like to live, work, and play in Botetourt County, which really fuels into our Getting to Know BOCO initiative. So Instagram is kind of where I like to live. Tip handles Facebook.
I handle, okay.
Because she's a little older.
Okay, we're just gonna be real. I'm older, so she definitely is in the world of Instagram.
Our Instagram was silent since 2017 when Tiffany came aboard, and we have grown so much since then. We have reached 8,000 people since January 1st, had 2,000 interactions, and we have about 2,435 followers. So it's a lot of fun getting to curate an Instagram grid and giving it a refresh to make it appeal to our younger citizens and everything. Some of our top performing content consists of posts and stories that help us tell the story of our community. So if it's highlighting businesses or different initiatives in the county. So we had our Safe Streets for All testimonies, and that was a really cool opportunity to tell the story of why safe streets matter to those in our community and highlighting some small businesses here and there. And then back to Tiff.
So yeah, Jessica has been such an asset again because she does live in that lane, and I have a daughter her age. So that's why I'm like, yes, you just live over at Instagram, but she's just been able to come in and really freshen up because everything that you see too, she has an eye for design. So she makes everything really pretty, which I really appreciate. And she's a wonderful addition to our team. And I can't say enough nice things. I'm going to get teary like talking about her. So we're just going to move forward. So Getting to Know BOCO is something that we did launch this month officially. Last month, we asked BOCO, we asked people to send us information that they wanted to know about. And we also took this opportunity to get to know what the frequently asked questions are that we get in our community. So we went and asked the experts. So that's part of it too. Folks can scan that QR code if they're in the audience. It's going to take them straight to that Getting to Know BOCO page. And this was something that was on my heart to start when I got here. So to actually see it to fruition, I'm just really proud of the work that so many people have done with it. So we know that sometimes our government information is complex, right? So government services, community development, economic development, even some of our, permitting processes, parks and rec, it can be complex. So that's where we're really trying to work with the different departments and try to simplify things to make it to where people can understand. And then we also want to humanize local government employees. A lot of times this is the men and women that are out, a lot of them live here in Botetourt County as well, but they're out there, doing the work. This is on the local level. This isn't on the national level. This is on the local level. So these are your neighbors that are working for the county. And then you've got give the community another way to ask questions. And then we want to listen as well. We don't want to assume that maybe we're doing the best way that we can as far as the website. So we want it to really have the best user experience possibly. And we want to tell those positive stories of the incredible people that make our community so great. That's been a part of our storyteller series that we've been doing. We just had Candace Monahan, Sarah with the honeybees. We've done her story. And we also did one about the tomato festival, which was fun because I really put those farmers on the spot. And I think really the most they said was, yeah, tomatoes are delicious. I mean, that's what we got them to say. We have a dedicated webpage for this. So it's also the little tab. If you go to our Botetourt County website, it's in one of the little circles. We also have a form and we deployed a chat bot because we realized when people were going to our website, they weren't able to really find what they were looking for. So this chat bot really lets you narrow down and be able to search for things within the website. And we have those Ask the Experts YouTube shorts I was talking about. Just Tracy is one, for example, let's talk all about the election that's coming up. What's your frequently asked question, or about permitting or about transportation? And then we launched a digital newsletter last week. So that was able to, land right in your email box. I think I might have added you guys to it. Anyway, so it should have landed in your email box or it should have landed as a text message. So that's something externally for the community that they can find out about everything from what's going on in the county, maybe news they need to know about, as well as our pets of the week from our friends at the Regional Center for Animal Care and Protection, because we love being able to get those pets adopted out. And then we're going to have more BOCO storytellers. These are just a few of our favorite stories and events that we've been a part of over the past couple years. And a lot of you guys have been a part of these stories with us. Everything from Destination Botetourt that we teamed up with VBR to support our small business, to broadband, to Norvell Lee's historical marker that we were able to dedicate a couple years ago in Eagle Rock, the Naismiths that we got to meet up there in Fincastle, BOCO Wild, economic development. And then one of my favorites was Seamus and Jill Deegan, our Assistant Commonwealth's attorney, that she uses Seamus as a therapy dog for kids that she is actually working with that have probably seen very traumatic things. And she also uses that, I think, to help the deputies there. So those are just a few of our favorite stories, but we want you to save the date to keep falling in love with BOCO. We're going to be dedicating our official BOCO love sign on October 1st at 10 o'clock at the Botetourt Sports Complex. So we're inviting the community out to that as well. This is a partnership that's been a long time coming with the Virginia Tourism Corporation, as well as BTEC. I'm going to have some of the students that helped weld it. They're going to be there and I'm going to make them talk. So they're going to get up and they're going to talk. So we're really excited about that love sign. You can't miss it if you go to the sports complex. It's right there in the parking lot. So we invite the community out to, again, just fall in love with BOCO. And we will also be leaning into BOCO Grateful starting in November. But this is our contact information. We're here to answer questions and here to tell the stories. I know sometimes I have to tell stories that maybe not everybody wants to hear, but it's news that we need to make sure that people know about. And that's really the heartbeat behind our BOCO comms department. Do y'all have any questions?
Questions for this great report? Anything?
Great stuff.
You know, what I think is great about this, not just what meets the eye, the graphics, which are exceptional, and the information, but the effect that it has on the county. It's a unifying effect. People get the same information and they have a better idea of what the county as a whole is doing. The other thing that I think is great about this is how much you enjoy it, the two of you. It's palpable.
Most days. Yeah, we do. I mean, we love telling the stories, and Jessica and I, we try to have some fun doing it, and we've just met some incredible people within our community. I've lived here 22 years in the county, but I just meet new people every day, and Jess is kind of new to the area with her husband working at Altech, so we just really enjoy that part of our job.
I think there was some recognition recently about one of the projects.
Yes, and we're going to have VACO here next month to talk about our BOCO Facts for You page. We did get a state award, VACO award for that, and we're very proud of that because we want to make sure the thing right now with information and what I've seen over my past 30 years in public relations and media is there's so much out there now. So it's being able to narrow down what is accurate, and that can be really hard to do. I know I get frustrated sometimes because I don't know where to go to get accurate information. So that's where we're trying, again, at the local level. These are our neighbors and we work together as a community. Might not always feel like that at the federal level or the state level, but here local, we really are trying to do that.
Thank you for helping make that happen. The work's outstanding, both of you.
Absolutely.
It's
Which one has more energy? You can.
Depends on the day. Totally depends on the day. But we do kind of play off each other a little. Usually your comms people were a little extra, that's.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Sure.
Well done. Very well done.
All right. Now we'll get you guys back to your meeting.
Thank you, you all.
Thank you.
Great job. Next is Chief Ferguson. Consider a proclamation declaring October 6th through 12th as Fire Prevention Week. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This afternoon, the first item I have before you is the proclamation that you mentioned. October for us is always a busy time of the year because it is Fire Prevention Month in general, and there's a specific week each year that is designated by the National Fire Prevention Association, or the NFPA as we call it, as Fire Prevention Week. This year, that week is October 6th through the 12th. And the theme this year is smoke alarms, make them work for you. Certainly you have the proclamation before you. I don't want to belabor reading the entire thing to you. What I would like to call attention to is, as part of this year's theme, it's usually around smoke alarms or cooking safety and things of that nature. With this year being smoke alarms as the initiative, we are the recipients of a grant from the Virginia Department of Fire Programs for 30 free smoke alarms that we currently have in our office. So as part of this, we have through the end of October to get those 30 smoke alarms in homes in Botetourt County. So just a call to action for the community. If you have aged smoke alarms that you're unsure whether or not they're working, or you do not have adequate smoke alarms or any smoke alarms. It is one of the leading causes of death in residential home fires, is not having a working smoke alarm. So our push there is we can come out and evaluate your home, help install those, and we send a record of that installation back to the Department of Fire Program, so they have it on file in case you were to have a home fire, so they can do the follow-up to determine if that's what actually alerted folks. That program also runs year-round in a partnership with us and the American Red Cross. So we're not just limited to 30 that we have available right now through a grant initiative, but all year long, we take requests. We participate in the Sheriff's Office Senior Focus sessions and try to get folks to sign up for us to come out and evaluate their home and provide smoke alarms. So that would be the mainstay of what I wanted to tell you today. Certainly the proclamation is important to us, and we have many activities throughout the month of October to reinforce Fire Prevention Month and the week itself. And our art contest is back underway this year. If you remember last year, we did the inaugural Fire Prevention Week art contest. Miss Lunsford, who's on vacation this week, not able to attend today, has already reached out to the schools. They're energetic and ready to go. So that process is underway. We will schedule an event for an announcement of the award winners. And of course, that's a themes-based art contest amongst, I believe, the middle schools. So I'll answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Well, I think this proclamation is sufficiently important that it should be read to the board and to the public. So I will proceed to do that. This covers a lot of the things that the chief just said and more. Proclamation declaring October 6th through 12th as Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the County of Botetourt is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our communities. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,700 people in the United States in 2022, according to the NFPA, and fire departments in the United States responded to 360,000 home fires. That's amazing. 1,000 a day, right? Whereas roughly 3 out of 5 fire deaths happen in homes with either no smoke alarms or with no working smoking alarms, which is what the chief was emphasizing. Whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in a reported home fire almost in half. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to dangers in the event of fire, in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape to safety. Whereas Botetourt residents should instill smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas Botetourt residents will make sure their smoke alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. Whereas Botetourt residents should test smoke alarms at least once a month. Whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Botetourt's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Botetourt residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2024 Fire Prevention Week theme, which is, quote, smoke alarms, make them work for you, unquote, serves to remind us of the importance of having working smoke alarms in the home. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Botetourt Board of Supervisors of Botetourt County, Virginia, do hereby proclaim October 6th through 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Week. throughout this community and urge all the people of Botetourt to make sure their homes have working smoke alarms and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Botetourt's fire and emergency services. I enter that for the consideration of the board.
I'll move to accept this resolution.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. In a manner of discussion, I will say this, together with what you said, Chief Ferguson, certainly instills confidence on where we are as a county in terms of safety and knowledge and education. We just have to implement it as individual citizens.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion?
I have one, if I
Sure.
may. Chief, you talked about the sensory or physical disabilities such as hearing. Can you give us an example of a fire detector to warn those that do have hearing disabilities?
Sure. So they do make smoke alarms that have visual indicators, as well as certain specialty smoke alarms that can provide physical sensory detection. So basically vibrations that can alert folks. But your typical commercial or industrial business, you have an audible and a visual. Most home smoke alarms have an audible. Some have a little tiny light that is more so for letting you know that the battery is failing, but does not alert. They do make strobe versions that go as part of a sensory specific smoke detection device to alert folks that cannot hear. Yes.
Thank you.
It was encouraging to see about a month ago the public response to the senior day that Chief Ferguson and Sheriff Ward had presented. A lot of information, a lot of interest in just this smoke and fire alarms.
Sure.
Okay, further discussion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item is the Axon package. This is the Sheriff's Department.
I think
it's
we have the
Jason.
ambulance first.
That's 13. The
13.
ambulances.
Guess we should do the ambulance as long as the chief is up there. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you. Switching gears, thank you again for the opportunity. This time, wishing to speak to you about a proposal related to an ambulance replacement concept that I have this afternoon. So a little bit of background on our current situation. Our department currently operates a total of 11 ambulances in its assigned fleet. This is down from what was a traditional volunteer fleet of 17 ambulances when I started as a volunteer in the very late 90s, early 2000s. That fleet has been whittled down over time just to make use of the resources and not to create redundancies that are unnecessary. Even with increased call volume, 11 ambulances is a solid fleet to work with. A minimum of those 6 ambulances are staffed 24/7, 365 right now. And there are 2 ambulances located in every station with the exception of Eagle Rock and Glen Wilton. The reason being, the criticality of maintaining an ambulance fleet. Obviously, if for some reason we were dispatched to a call and the primary service ambulance was not able to fire, there are 2 things that can happen. One is we have a secondary or backup ambulance in that facility that we can immediately transition to and handle the call from the community, or rely on the neighboring ambulance, still potentially a Botetourt County ambulance, but very well could be a Roanoke County or neighboring jurisdiction ambulance to respond to get to that call. Seconds matter, so we maintain this backup fleet. And quite frankly, given longevity of the use of the vehicles, the mileage, the wear and tear, you have to have something to back it up when the truck is in the shop or broken down or in disrepair because of a crash or something of that nature. So Eagle Rock, 1 ambulance fits the bill very well there. That's about what the building will accommodate as well. And then Glen Wilton, we currently do not have any type of transport ambulance scenario out of that facility, we respond from Eagle Rock, and we have a mutual aid response from Iron Gate as well in those areas. And then in addition to our day-to-day emergency operations, which obviously takes precedence, we do have requests for events like the football games, something that traditionally volunteer EMS agencies would have handled. We have to backstaff with part-time or overtime to make sure that there's coverage at those events that are mass gatherings with high potential for injuries. So we need more than just the 6 ambulances that we work out of daily is the point. This next slide, while colorful, I hope it doesn't hurt your eyes, just a basic rundown of the 11 ambulances in the fleet and kind of my scenario of where they stand in a stoplight perspective. Green means good, yellow means caution, and obviously we have one truck that is currently down and has been down for close to 6 months because of an electrical chassis issue that we cannot get a determination on. So it is probably no longer going to maintain itself in our fleet. The green means a vehicle that is less than 8 years old and less than 125,000 miles. The yellow is anything that's greater than 8 years of age and or more than 125,000 miles. And then red, of course, I've explained to you. The truck at the bottom, the 2017, that has 55,000 miles on it, that is a truck that was transitioned into the system from the Reed Mountain Volunteer entity. It's got age on it, but it had low use. We have since this was put together, that vehicle has transitioned to Eagle Rock to become the new primary at Eagle Rock. And we have transitioned one of those noted to be in Eagle Rock to Reed Mountain because it'll get its miles, it'll get its use in Eagle Rock. So a little snapshot. Where we are with what is currently on order for the replacement. You all considered a package back in October of 22. I know we're almost 2 years from when that decision was made to allow us to order 2 ambulances as part of the ambulance and fire truck package that was proposed at that time. These 2 ambulances are scheduled to arrive in August of next calendar year. So fiscal year 26 is when they're scheduled to arrive. So that's the only set of ambulances that's currently on order. So I'm sure, as you can see from all the yellow, we currently do have needs and need to make sure that we have a plan in place for continuity of operations, safety of operations, and making sure we don't have trucks breaking down, responding to, or transporting people to the hospital. That said, we used to have a goal of keeping trucks under 110,000 miles and replace them about every 7 years. That's unrealistic these days. And quite frankly, there's the age old, it's a diesel motor. How long should it last? The challenge is these are not traditional miles, A, and B, the new world of diesel exhaust fluid challenges. The DEF systems are the mainstay of the challenge. So the question becomes, well, what about gas? We've talked to neighbors that run gas chassis ambulances as well. They have injected a couple of those and then transitioned back to diesel because it's either one or the other. Has its own challenges. So we've looked at those and the longevity of today's general truck with all the technology, it's just not there. So our goal is to try to maintain a fleet that's under 150,000 miles or less than 8 years old as kind of that indicator for, is this something that's a mainstay, reliable piece of equipment that we should be responding to emergencies in? So we have 2 particular opportunities to talk about. One is there's a 3rd ambulance. Given the state of the production world for ambulances and fire trucks, lead times post-COVID have been immense, as I've already indicated with the 2 trucks that don't arrive until next year. And as part of that, our ambulance vendor predetermined production slots. So there is a production slot that has a truck that would be the same design as a Botetourt County truck that is not ours at this moment. we have the option, that's part of the approach today, is to request consideration for whether or not we would like to lock that truck in so that come next fall, we have 3 ambulances that show up instead of 2. And then secondarily, is to look at future ambulance purchases, because as of today, confirming with the vendor, if we ordered in the next week or month, the production time from striking a new order is mid to late 2027. We do have the ability, since that lead time is so far, that if we need them to be in a specific fiscal year, we can work with the vendor to isolate when they need to arrive. Very similar to the trucks that come next year. They're not going to be programmed to physically show up because the production line won't allow them to until August. But if for some reason we needed them to show up in January, we could ask for that. I certainly wouldn't propose that because that's just deferring what we already need. So there is that ability. I want to make sure you're aware of that. So what that looks like from a fiscal impact, FY25, there's no impact. That is why it was not part of the requested package for the FY25 budget, is because we would not have had anything to actually show up and pay for this fiscal year. For FY26, it was already calculated into the financial review as it relates to a potential payment to pay for them or finance them. And that is the 2 known trucks at about $888,000. The request would be to consider adding that 3rd ambulance, which that turnkey price of $444 there, that includes the ambulance and a required load system that holds the cot in place. That is something that all of the new trucks have had for the past 5 years. It is a requirement, and quite frankly, it's an expensive requirement, but it is part of it, and a stretcher. We have been deferring the purchase of stretchers for several years because we want to maximize the use of the stretchers. So when we were buying them brand new and we got a new truck that, the stretcher had served 5 years, we just put that 5-year-old stretcher in the new truck and moved on. And we've been doing that. Our stretchers have aged. We've got stretchers 17 years in age right now. So trying to make sure we have that cadence taken care of. And I did put in a grant request for 50% of the load systems and stretchers for 2 of the 2 trucks that are on order. We would know about that in January. But nonetheless, that would stifle about $60,000 worth of the cost for us. On the 2 that we have on order. Does not take care of the 3rd because obviously that's not on order. I wasn't going to judge that and put that as a request in a grant. FY27, there's no projected impact related to this. And then again, FY28 would be when any additional ambulances that you all authorized could potentially show up. My ask is to do 3 more. That's a total of 6 trucks over by calendar years since we ordered in 22. That's over 5, almost 6 calendar years of, and so your average is basically 1 truck per year. We were on a cadence of doing a 2-1-2-1 cadence prior to COVID. So we would order 2 trucks and receive them in 1 year, and then the next single truck would come the following calendar year. That was our matrix. That matrix has obviously been blown out of the water given lead times. That ask for the additional 3 ambulances would, including the load system and stretchers, is $1.455 million. So my recommendation and ask is to authorize the purchase of the 3rd ambulance for that's an FY26. That's my bad. We would basically be ordering it, but it would not hit until FY26, and then authorize the ordering of 3 additional ambulances to arrive in calendar year 27, fiscal year 28. I'll take any questions, comments, or concerns.
Questions from board members? So I will confess to some discomfort with this, Chief. Procedural, if nothing else. Shouldn't this be considered in the context of the overall budgets coming up? I mean, ordinarily, something like this would originate would originate with you, be reviewed by the finance committee and.
Sure, that is one way, and that is the traditional way. As I said previously, our last package request was in October of 22, aside from the normal buzz of the budget season. I think the challenge is, given lead times, at least on the third truck, the one that could arrive next calendar year, that one is of utmost importance. It was not a financial impact to calendar year, or I'm sorry, fiscal year 25. So that we talked about it through the budget process, but it was not an ask because it was not a financial burden on FY 25. It's actually a financial burden if we chose to do that on FY 26. But I cannot wait until the FY 26 budget would be adopted in April to lock in a truck that would arrive in August, because it will be gone. They have to lock it into somebody and sell it. Now, there's no pressure. I brought this up because I know that this is a forecast that's coming down the line. The vendor does not have a, you must buy by next week or there will be a price hike. The price of the third truck is the same price as the two that we locked in October of 22. The three new ones that could be purchased for future years, there is a increase in that price because of the, when they would be produced, cost of materials, cost of labor. So to your point, yes, normal churn, it would go through the budget process. In terms of timelines of ordering things, especially with the third potential truck, time is of the utmost essence. That's why we chose to bring it to you this month for any type of consideration.
So another question, as part of the process, I would think that you all have looked at alternatives. Like you had a slide up there that discussed the fact these are diesel engines, and and that slide kind of implied to me that the chassis and even the equipment in the back is okay. It's just the running gear that's in question. And I mean, diesels, and I think you said this, diesels go forever, but why not rebuild what we've got?
So do a re-chassis? Is that what you're like, basically pick the body up and put a new truck
That would be
underneath
a way
it?
to do it, rebuild the engine and so on. Just alternatives to this kind of money.
Sure. And Mr. Michael brought that question up in the early phases, I think actually during orientation for new board members, about why not re-chassis. I think one of the critical factors there, and the vendors will tell you, the amount of money to re-chassis, like if you did pick up the box and stick a new chassis under, plus the downtime of that vehicle being out of your fleet and away at the manufacturer, actually in the long run costs more than buying a new truck. I think that's real. We've done re-chassis before.
One other thing is electronics. That we've found by the rebodying that the electronics tend to not be compatible. And so to try and fix all of that, we're looking at more labor and materials than going completely new.
Yeah, and we have, in the past 21 years, we've done 2 re-chassis. We did one in the very beginning, like year 2 or 3 of our service operating, the old Troutville ambulance. We re-chassied it down in Alabama. Had a lot of electrical challenges with that one. And then about 5 years later, we tried it again. Same thing. The computers change in 5 years for certain. They have changed. So you can plug it back together, but the marrying between the comm systems is not the same. And then you have a truck that, I mean, you have to use, and it plagues you with electrical ghosts throughout its tenure.
And what's the price tag on one of these ambulances?
The current price tag is right at $388, raw, without the load system. When you add the load system and stretcher, it's $444. And the new trucks, the base price was $412, comparing the $388 to the $412. So you're talking 500, pushing close to the $500,000 mark, just shy of there per truck for something that it shows up in calendar year 27.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Michaels, I know he sits on the board of the Chiefs board. So, he talked about a matrix do you see any matrix that we need to look into on the future of getting these trucks?
No, I think we're looking at state of the art as the new configurations come out.
The matrix of purchasing.
Oh,
Do you see anything from the board or the county that we need to look into the purchasing of these vehicles?
and my estimation, especially for the additional 3, this gives you an opportunity to plan now for that eventuality. It gives giving you another 4 years lead time. And that way we can be responsive to the needs rather than reactive. And especially if we have something that, the engine goes, or we don't want to get ourselves in a situation where we have to replace one right now, because then we're probably going to have to go out to the secondary market. And this is also part of our thought process, is we don't have to put any money up front for the future ones. And the reason we're asking for the money for the one additional now is that you put your marker in the production line going out in the future. And it's sort of like I view it like a pro football draft. It's sort of like, I'll trade you 1 truck today for 5 draft choices in the future. So we're getting our markers in line. So that was the logic we were using.
I think too, it would allow the trucks to get on the capital plan over the next several years. So here's this money, this money, this money, and it's not all coming out in one big chunk.
What's the value of any of the decommissioned vehicles? When we get these, do we take the others out of the fleet, and what value does that have?
Sure.
How does that apply to this?
So we've been able to sell recent ambulances for anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000 a piece. And we do put those funds back into the capital reserve fund to purchase more apparatus. Again, I believe next month, every October is when we typically come to you with whatever our revenues above the 1.2 million from cost recovery to go towards that capital reserve fund. And we do have the potential to ask for a grant for an ambulance. It can't be an ambulance that's on order. The challenge is the Virginia Office of EMS. I don't know if you've seen any of the headlines there, but they found themselves upside down by about $33 million. And they stopped grant programs for almost 16 months. They just reinitiated it with the fall cycle. So knowing that we probably were 50th in line for an ambulance and there's only 4.5 million to go around, I went ahead and asked for the load systems and stretchers, because that's a small bite that we have a likely chance of getting, and it does bring our costs down by $60,000.
So what are the consequences if we wait, say, 2 months while we adjudicate this thing in terms of the overall budget?
Yeah, I think for the truck for next fall, the 3rd truck, the potential is that the vendor has to move and sell that to someone else. The market is super hot, so the potential for them to do that is easily there. That's just the reality. As far as the other 3, we could talk about those through the process and have that baked in as part of the considerations for FY26. But again, financially, it's not going to be representative of FY26. That's the challenge that I have, is I can't come to you anymore and say, we need an ambulance as part of this budget. You appropriate X number of dollars for an ambulance. We order it. It's here in 11 months and boom, we pay for it. And it's off the financial debt service. That's the reason. We had this same conversation last night with the fire chiefs. A fire engine, if we were to be asking for one right now, 4 years. So it's not an implication of FY26, it's an implication of FY29 or FY30.
So if we approved the 3 down FY28 ambulances and for some reason found ourselves at that time in a position that we were not comfortable spending that. Is there any way to cancel that order, basically?
There is a cancel clause, there's a percentage penalty, but yes, there is a cancel clause. Just like there's cancel clauses on the fire apparatus or on order. I think it's 20% on those. But if we found ourselves in a really sticky spot next year and you just couldn't stomach it financially, there's cancel clauses in all of it. It's at a penalty, but it's nowhere near the full price tag.
I am open for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we appropriate process to secure the additional 4 units.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded that we proceed with the ordering of 4 new ambulances. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
And that brings us to, now we're on the Axon station, not station, package, Axon package. Sheriff's personnel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your time today to provide an Axon project update at the Sheriff's Office. My name is William Bentley. I've been managing the acquisition and implementation of our updated digital evidence collection and management solutions. I'm pleased to be able to share with you all that after final vendor negotiations, we can move forward with transitioning vendors to Axon technologies and update our equipment without requesting additional appropriations of funds this fiscal year. This will allow us to complete the equipment update in the next 3 months, which is crucial to replacing original, soon-to-be unsupported hardware that plays a vital role in our daily function. This project incorporates updating our current in-car camera systems, Cradle Point internet solutions for our patrol vehicles, and existing outdated tasers with a new, more effective, less lethal taser. We'll also fix all holsters with a device that automatically turns on cameras in the immediate vicinity if a duty weapon is removed from that deputy's holster. Provides a robust storage solution for all of our digital evidence needs, and finalize the implementation of body-worn cameras across our law enforcement division. After this update, all components will work together to provide a seamless operating system from the initial collection of evidence to the final presentation in court. Moving forward with this project allows the Sheriff's Office to provide accountability, transparency, and the best possible law enforcement services to the citizens of Botetourt. This technology provides critical officer safety advantages to our deputies who are constantly immersed in task-saturated environments by equipping them with reliable and simplified tools. This technology also provides accurate locations of officers in the event they find themselves needing emergency assistance when faced with intense, high stress, and rapidly evolving situations. Axon positions the Sheriff's Office for long-term success over the next decade by providing us with innovative technology. This solution incorporates replacements and scheduled updates of the equipment, enabling us to address the continually changing landscape of criminal activity with modern tools. I'd like to thank you, the members of the board and county leadership, for your continued support of the Sheriff's Office and our shared public safety interests. Your support and commitment to public safety ensures we continue to provide the most efficient and effective law enforcement services to the citizens. Thank you. I'd be available to answer any questions you may have about the project.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, and let's make sure I understand the tasers. I know there's new technology within tasers that whenever somebody is tased, the cameras go on from the body cam and the car.
Correct.
Is that correct?
So any Axon device that has a capability of recording when the taser is armed, which is done when we remove it from the holster. We automatically arm it. It sends out a frequency which causes those devices to start recording if they are not already recording, much as the holster attachment does.
And as far as the old tasers, how many tasers could they, if one missed or one hit something and was unable to tase, do you have a reload or what happens at that point in time?
So we have the possibility of 2 taser deployments with our current, we have the X2 in our patrol, our law enforcement division, and you have 2 tries basically to try to successfully deploy the device. With this new device, it has 10 individually placed probes, which increases your chances of having a successful deployment and being able to resolve that situation with less lethal devices.
Thank you.
It seems this is a complete overhaul of your equipment, right? You're going to get rid of all the old and bring in all the new. What kind of training is necessary for you all to get comfortable with the new system?
So they will send on-site trainers to do this, and it will require additional training with the digital evidence management solution, which is a web-based application. It will require the body-worn camera training associated with that and the new taser training because it is.
And that's all done in person. They send someone here and work with every individual employee.
Correct. They have a train the trainer program. We currently have 3 taser trainers or 3 taser instructors in the department, and they will update them on the new device. And then we can provide
And then they'll
training
train
throughout the department as we are able to do so.
Nice.
Very exciting. Any other discussion?
I had one question. Since we're going from 2 taser units to 10, is there a difference in range?
Yes, this new device increases our effective range up to 45 feet. Currently, we are limited to a maximum of 25 feet with the Taser X2.
Okay, thank you.
Nearly doubles it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board? Questions?
No.
Sounds like a real advance for us. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the health insurance renewal. David, are you doing this?
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Paul LaPrade. He's with One Digital Health Services. They're our insurance consultant, and he's going to present the bulk of the information to you today. As you all are aware, you will recall from previous years, the county offers group insurance benefits for its workforce, and those benefits are contracted on an annual basis. That contract runs from December 1 to November 30th. So what Mr. LaPrade is going to share with you is some information about the past year's performance and the renewal proposals that we received for your consideration to be effective December 1. If you remember some of the information we gave to you last few years, you'll remember that we've had some really good years in terms of our health insurance experience and our rate renewals, some of which have been no increases or reductions. You may remember me cautioning and indicating that that wasn't going to last. Well, I'm going to let Mr. LaPrade deliver that news to you. But we'll certainly be available for any questions that you may have, and I appreciate your consideration. And you can advance slides just by touching it.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon. Can y'all hear me okay? As Mr. Mormon was gracious enough to introduce myself, my name is Paul LaPrade. I am one of the consultants that's worked with Botetourt and One Digital. I'm based out of the Roanoke office, so I'm a very frequent visitor of Botetourt County. So love this place. So I want to give you all kudos and the citizens kudos for this wonderful county, first and foremost, before Mr. Mormon set me up for maybe not so great news that everyone else has been able to get today. So I just want to go ahead and kind of talk about the renewal process and then talk about kind of the back house stuff that kind of went in with it. For really just strictly medical is going to be the bulk of my conversation, but with pharmacy, dental, vision, some of those things thrown in as well. Okay. So, with our executive summary here, we kind of talk about the 4 phases that we're going to be looking to implement as of December 1st. I'll start on the first side. It's the medical and the pharmacy side is obviously the largest, most utilized program on the benefit structure piece. So, currently you all have coverage with a third-party administrator named MedCost. For those who may not be aware, they're the third-party administrator. They handle claims processing, eligibility, customer service, things of that nature. You're with the Kroger prescription plans. That is the pharmacy side. They process all the back house prescription work. So if you're at a pharmacy such as Kroger, and you go to get your prescription, they actually have a subsidy on the back end that actually processes all that information for you. And then Berkeley, since you all are self-funded, you have what's called a stop loss carrier. And what that is, that's insurance on top of your insurance to make sure there's not a specific threshold that you all meet. So we started this process back in probably the April-May timeframe where we started looking at projections. And when we met with Botetourt, our projections were looking at about a 27 to 30% increase for this coming year. And I'll talk about why in just a little bit. So what we did is we met with the team and we said, we can't present 30%. So we need to be proactive with this. What we did is we went to the market. We went and said, these projections need to either come down or we need to switch carriers. And what I mean by that is we looked at everything from fixed costs, variable costs, different carriers, different plans, different options. What is in the best interest of the employee it was our main goal. So essentially we went to the stop loss market and we found 8 different carriers that came back and gave us quotes. Of those 8 carriers, they gave us about 20 different options. We pared that down to 2 carriers, your incumbent Berkeley stop loss, and another carrier, Tokyo Marine HCC, as the best options for you all. When we went and started negotiating these with Berkeley, their best and final offer was a 24% increase. So that was an increase not only on the fixed cost, but maybe claim subsidy that, unfortunately, we could not get down any further with them. Tokyo Marine is another stop loss carrier, A++ rated. They came in at 20% with no disruption to the employee whatsoever, no change in tiers, no change in plan designs, anything like that. So there should be no effect on the employees on that end. That is strictly at a high level. So we started this process about 30, and our final recommendation is a move to Tokyo Marine on the medical side for that 20% increase, with the employees marking about 10% of that increase in that coverage. And I will talk about what that means to their contributions here in just a few moments. On the dental side, the current year-to-date expenses are right in line with where they were last year. Dental does not cover a huge weight when it comes to overall expense, as there is a cap of how much your insurance will pay. So there was not a huge savings there. The renewal did call for an increase from $4.35 per employee per month with Delta Dental to about $4.55. We negotiated that down to $4.50. Not a huge negotiation, but was able to get that down some. And we are reckoning with them keeping the dental premiums flat. So there would actually be no increase on the dental side for the employees. The vision with IMED, you're in a rate lock until November 30th, 2026. So there's no increase there. There's no need to change there. And then the MetLife, which is the short-term and long-term disability, also in a rate lock through December of 2025. So employees don't need to worry about any rate hikes there. So part of the reason for the increase is strictly due to claims. Claims have been higher over this last plan year, starting December 2023 to current, compared to the prior year, which is December 2022 through November 2023, approximately about 18.9% higher than the previous year. With this most recent plan year, June 2024 has been your highest month so far in this plan year, with the utilization per employee per month cost exceeding 30% higher than the previous year. Okay. The next point is utilization exceeding premium. Whenever you hire someone new, that's an additional premium that goes into your health insurance budget. That increase, you've hired about 5% more employees in that percentage. your utilization is just exceeding that premium. That's just another fancy way of saying your claims are high, the expenses are high. That's all it is. And then the high cost claimants, for your plan is anyone over $60,000. If they have any large excess claims in that amount, they get put on a list so that we can start, making sure we're on diagnosis. And when we start renewing with the stop loss carrier, we start negotiating with them. And that's going to come into play in just a few moments. So Mr. Mormon actually kind of talked about this already. When it comes to your trend, it is important to realize that you've all had great years, the previous 4, and this is just your what we call quote unquote bad year. Since you all are self-insured, the industry trend is actually every 5 years, you're going to have a higher year. Most municipalities in your demographic, right around in between the 200 to 499 range, they're exceeding 20% of an increase over that 5-year mark. You all are just above 6%. So not only are you being generous with your benefit plan, but your employees are being excellent stewards of themselves and their health plan to help keep those costs down. So I think that's important to note, that, the employees are doing everything that they possibly can to help themselves with their employee costs. So as you can see here, 2020, 2021, COVID years, the whole world went crazy. No increases were given because just like anything, the health insurance industry didn't know what to expect. So no increases were given. 2022, a 7% decrease was offered, which is non-existent anymore in the world, unfortunately. Last year was a 4%, which the county absorbed that increase. And now the 20%, pending the final approval, this is your bad year, the 1 in 5. So I do think it's important to keep that in context, that even though this is the bad year, the last 5 you all have done better than most municipalities around the Commonwealth. So this is and I apologize for the spacing there. The current budget for the medical expenditure is about 3.7. With the $752,000 increase, the new proposed budget is 4.5. With the county picking up about 3.8 of the new proposed budget, and the employees as a whole getting a $58,000 increase, which bumps it up to $645,000 when it talks about premium themselves. This is the new proposed contribution for the employee, so you can kind of see what kind of costs that they would have per pay period. And as an employee only on the medical plan, their current deduction is about $95. So they would get a $9.50 increase, making the proposed budget about $104.50 as their premium contribution. You can see the different tiers going all the way to family, which is $420. And the proposed contribution for the employees, $462. The dental premiums, as I mentioned, there's no increase there. Everything is trending just as it normally was, and there's not a large expenditure for the dental. So we are suggesting and recommending no dental premium increases for this coming year. And the last couple of things I'll talk about, just to make sure we're all aware of, is some legislation pieces, because it is an election year. There is current bills or talks in DC about 3 major things that could be affecting self-funded health plans like yourselves. The first one being the limit of Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices. If you are aware or not aware, Medicare is not only a coverage for individuals, but it's also a negotiating power with most facilities and doctors around the country. A lot of hospital systems and facilities use Medicare as a baseline to offer other coverages for other entities such as the Cignas, the Anthems, the United Healthcares of the world. For instance, someone on Medicare, if you get an X price for them, someone who's not on Medicare, such as myself, the price may be 140% of Medicare. So limiting Medicare's ability to negotiate prices, especially drug prices, we could see a hike in drug prices as the years goes on just because of that aspect. The second point is the increased control over pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs for short, such entities such as the Kroger prescription plan, to manage the relationship. So there would be federal intervention regarding negotiations along with partnerships with the drug manufacturers, so that we could potentially see an effect in the PBMs and higher costs there as the year goes on because of that relationship, because of that bill that's in. Currently, I think it's just hasn't been introduced yet, but it's in talks. And then the potential to make COVID era mandates for the telemedicine permanent. And what that essentially was is during COVID, ACA made any type of telemedicine vendor for a doctor. So for instance, if I called Dr. Smith and I met with him electronically or telephonically, it was no cost to the employee. Unfortunately, for the health plan provider, that could actually be higher increase on your end because you are paying for that service where the employee is not taking that responsibility. So that could be another thing that we need to keep a lookout for. So our recommendations for medical, we are recommending renewal with MedCost, which is that third-party administrator, and Kroger, which is that prescription plan that the employees are used to. So there'll be no disruption there. We are suggesting moving the stop loss coverage to Tokyo Marine HCC. What that does, it lowers the renewal along with a lowering the fixed cost, which is the big benefit of the 4% difference between the two. Pharmacy, continuing with script sourcing in Kroger. Dental, renewing with Delta Dental with no price increase. Vision, renew with IMED with the rate guarantee till 2026. And then MetLife continuing with them with the rate cap of December 31st, 2025. And I will be happy to take any questions at this time.
Can you go back to your legislation awareness slide?
Yes, sir.
And my question is pretty simple. I lost track of what your point was. These are just some potential.
These are potential things that we are watching as your consultant that we will be happy to present if anything goes through. Because if any of these things the way we think they're going to go, which hopefully, depending on the House and the Senate and everything of that nature, like for the first bullet point, Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices. If that is more constricted, controlled, drug prices will eventually go up. As we know, manufacturers always try to find a loophole to make a little bit more money on the average consumer. We're worried that could be even more evident because of the inability to negotiate by Medicare's part. I'm sorry, does that help? Okay.
Board member questions?
As far as some of the drug, thank you, Chairman. As far as the drug-related items, what was our percentage of generics in comparison?
So I don't have that number directly in front of me, but I know it's higher than most municipalities your size. As I said, your employees are extraordinary stewards of the health plan, where they advocate for the generic program. I can actually get that information for you and have it available, but I do want to say it's in excess of 89% generic fill rate.
89%?
I believe so.
And I would like to know if that was a case, how many of those individuals would benefit off of the regular medication and non-generic? And the reason why is because some of the generics don't provide some of the new technology in some of the medications. So I hope that they're not being held back and going forced into.
So use of generic is voluntary, and if a treating physician does not consent or prescribe generic, then there's no penalty on the employee for not utilizing the generic. And the 80-some%, I believe, is of the overall total drug distribution, 80-some% is generic versus brand. Generic is not always available for all drugs. So where generic is available, I believe our utilization rate is well into the 90-some%.
How does this, and I know you've worked with other counties in the county surrounding area, how does this compare with other counties?
It's much higher. I'll be honest with you that you talking about the utilization for generic compared to brand.
Just not in, just the whole program itself. How does it compare?
So you all's program, if we want to talk about from a benefit standpoint,
exactly,
your benefit plan is the most generous plan that I've seen in the public sector. So talking about the $0 deductible plan to the employees. I wish I had the plan, to be quite honest with you. Other municipalities can have anything from a $500 deductible to, quite honestly, a $6,000 deductible. And that is a high deductible health plan, HSA option, HRA options, things of that nature. So you all have an extremely generous plan, but it's important to know that your employees, I would say, do what they need to do for their health. They get their the annual visits done. They're not taking advantage of the plan, anything like that. There's no multiple prescriptions going on. It's a very good, extremely beneficial plan to the employee.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I understood your slides correctly, the most increase anyone would see is $42. members. That's the
That,
family.
42. Yes, ma'am. That's the
And
family.
that's per month
That is per pay period,
or
Per month.
per month.
per month?
Yes.
Not per pay,
I'm
not
sorry.
twice.
No,
I was hoping it wasn't 84 a month.
No, it
It
is.
is
It is,
42 per month.
we pay once a month.
Have we talked with our employees about this?
So we have not yet, because this was pending your all's consideration today. Once we have formal approval, then our HR department with One Digital and our other partners will be working on open enrollment information. And this year, so since COVID, we've been doing all that remotely. We're going to continue to make that remote. We're also hoping this year that we're going to be able to do that through our new HR system online, which will make it much easier. But we're also going to return to in-person open enrollment meetings for employees who would like to take advantage of that. So we're going to try to do that in multiple ways. One thing that I would say about our plan, if you don't mind, I would agree with Paul that our plan relative to some others is in some respects generous. Our goal and objective is not to necessarily provide a generous benefit plan. Our goal is to provide a smart benefit plan, a plan that will serve us well when it comes to recruiting, retaining employees, but is going to provide good value for the cost. And so speaking of generic utilization, for example, we reward employees if they use generic drugs. Their copay is a smaller percentage. If employees get their imaging outside of a hospital setting, we reward them by reimbursing a greater percentage of the cost and the employees a lesser cost. So we try to find strategic ways that we can help encourage people to be smart consumers and where we can take advantage of cost advantages where they exist in the market. There aren't a lot of them, but where they are, we try to really leverage them and take advantage of them. And that's one thing that we're able to do because we are partially self-funded. We can do some of those customized things that if you were a member of the Virginia, the local choice program or Anthem or some others, that kind of flexibility just isn't available. So I would agree. We have some features that are generous, no deductible, but we try to be smart versus generous. And I think we've seen the fruits of that. As you all see in your monthly trial treasurer's reports, our health fund has a generous balance. I think we're around $3 million for that. So part of our recommendation today is that you would approve the increase in the employee premiums, that the county would pay for its share of the increase from the health fund, undesignated fund balance that we have available, rather than taking new money from the county's general fund.
Anything else from board members? And you need a motion and approval to move forward, David?
Yes, sir. If you would, recommendations 2, 3, and 4, and that could all be one motion if the board would like.
Recommendations 2, 3, 4.
That would be basically to authorize renewals as recommended, authorize the employee premiums as recommended, and authorize staff to execute all necessary documentations upon review and approval of the county attorney.
Can these be taken as a whole, Mr. Attorney?
I think that whether you take it up as a whole is going to depend on what you can take up as a whole as a matter of the negotiations with the providers. Is that right?
Negotiations are concluded. These are negotiated renewals from the carriers to the county.
So then this would be something that you would have to take up as a whole package.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So this would be something you would have to take up as a whole package.
It is something we need to take up as a whole package. Item 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I'm looking at them, and they do have, I'm not sure which one you would want to change. I suppose that you could change having the employee premiums versus the amount that the Board of Supervisors is picking up be different. But otherwise, as far as accepting the package of prices that have been negotiated, I don't know that there's actually any wiggle room without going back to the table and renegotiating the whole thing.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't hear all that. Can you put that in simple terms? brief.
The only thing that I think that you can really make a change to right now is the amount that it is hitting the employee, the amount that the employee is picking up of this increase versus the amount that the Board of Supervisors is picking up of this increase. Does that make sense?
Only change from current conditions?
The current conditions, so the price is going to go up. The price that the county is getting charged is going to go up. The only thing I think in this scenario that you could change based upon the proposal that's been made is the amount that it would go up on the employee versus the amount that it would go up on the Board of Supervisors. Does
Not
that
the
make
total
sense?
amount, but just the split of those two.
Right.
This rate chart.
Yeah.
It would end up being this rate chart, Mr. Chair. It's either accept this or modify this, I think is what council was talking about. So under the proposed, it would be 104.50 would end up being the employee only portion of that. Or the employee spouse would be 354. And then that is actually split between what the county picks up and what the employee picks up. So as an example, over on the increase, if you wanted to reduce the increase to the to the county, you could end up picking up more of that if you chose to do so. Is that right, Dave?
You go back, David, could you go back to the previous slide? I think it was the previous slide that showed.
The split.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's taking, so if you look at those numbers, Mr. Chairman, you have in the top box in the blue, you have what the increase is, and that's been negotiated. Those prices can't really be changed. You've kind of, if you're going to keep, you either need to go back to the table and renegotiate, or you got to accept it. As far as the red and the green boxes, what ratio of that increase? So it says the county board of supervisors is going to pick up 600 some odd thousand. I can't read.
693.
And then it's going to be, and then 59,000 is going to be passed on to employees. And that pass on to employees is in the next slide. So you can change the amount that the board is going to absorb versus the amount that's going to be passed on to employees. But pretty much everything else you've got to kind of accept the slate, or we have a problem.
Or we can accept what staff has recommended.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? I don't think we've had a motion on this yet, have we? Okay. I will move that we proceed with the arrangements contained in the recommendations from staff in our package.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? That is approved. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
I know it's tiring. Every year.
Well, it's a lot of work and there's some complexity to it, but I will say, in my experience, having a self-funded program like this, it gives us more control, is a huge advantage and makes it, in some ways more work, but also, gives us a lot more opportunities than we'd otherwise have. So appreciate it very much. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, David. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm inclined to take a break. Let's take 5 minutes. Oh, excuse me, not
We're
5,
almost
10
done.
minutes. Go to we'll reconvene at 4:15.
Who's done?
who own less than 25 megawatts worth of storage capacity in total across their entire portfolio, they would be taxed as machinery and tools, their facilities. Any facilities that are owned by a public service corporation, which is to say Appalachian Power, Dominion, there are a couple of other much smaller investor-owned utilities in Virginia. Their facilities are taxed as public service corporation property at a much lower rate than machinery and tools is taxed. So we have had someone come and approach the county who is they are a private owner. However, they are proposing to build a facility of between 80 and 100 megawatts, basically right in the shadow of the Cloverdale substation. So their facility would fall under public service corporation taxation. The General Assembly has established the option for localities to either have a much diminished taxation scheme where the facilities of public service corporations that are battery storage facilities are largely exempt from taxation. They're taxed on only 20%, 30%, or 40% of their fair market value, depending on their age. Or, as a locality, you can opt not to tax them, quote unquote, and instead get what's called a revenue share, which is $1,400 per megawatt of capacity. And that goes up by 10% every 5 years, beginning in 2026. So it becomes $1,540 in 2026 and so on and so forth. When you go through and do the math, the facilities that are taxed as machinery and tools, locally assessed, so they're below 25 megawatts and they are not owned by a public service corporation, they would be taxed more as machinery and tools than they would under the revenue share. All other facilities would be taxed more under the revenue share than under machinery and tools, or excuse me, than under the public service corporation taxation scheme. The revenue share is also highly predictable because you know exactly how much it's going to be year after year after year. So that leads to what we're recommending, which is that the county adopt a revenue share ordinance in order to provide that rather than being taxed on machinery and tools or public service corporation tax for property, that instead the county impose the revenue, what I call the revenue share tax in lieu of that in order to have that predictable revenue stream. Now, there is an additional piece here that's worth keeping in mind, that part of the land use approvals for this type of a project is what's called a siting agreement. And those siting agreements are typically going to include a few land use things, perhaps greater buffering or other sorts of buffering or tree barriers and things like that to improve the sightliness beyond what might be required by the background zoning. But one of the other major pieces that siting agreements often include is some form of training for the locality's fire and EMS department, particularly because dealing with fire or emergency events relating to a battery is difficult and unique. And so typically these companies are going to provide specialized training on a regular rotation to the fire department of the locality where they're sited. It also provides for, these siting agreements also oftentimes provide for cash payments under the recognition that this type of a facility, it's imposing an unusual and unique cost on the locality that is sometimes not fully tangible. Very similar to the way that and there are a few types of facilities that this same concept applies to. Another type of facility this applies to is a solid waste facility. When we did our agreement with County Waste to take over our landfill, close the landfill, build the new transfer station, we entered a siting agreement, which I believe requires them to pay the county a $3 per ton royalty for every out-of-county ton of trash brought into the county. It's because there's an extraordinary cost an extraordinary and very difficult to quantify cost that comes with having a privately owned solid waste facility located in your locality. Similarly, there is an intangible cost to having a battery storage facility in your locality. So typically you would also negotiate a siting agreement, which included some amount of cash payments to compensate for that. And I can go through the background of how that taxation scheme works. I can go through how the grid works. I can go through how a siting agreement might work and what it's designed to compensate for. But I wanted to try to leave it at that very simple bottom line of, in most circumstances, you are going to have a larger and more predictable long-term revenue stream from using revenue share than from using property taxation as your basis for taxing the electrical company. And there is also the siting agreement process, which becomes easier to negotiate based upon the predictability of that revenue stream, as well as the siting agreement creates the ability to negotiate in a way negotiate the taxes in a sense. Now, I do want to note that this is not an economic development project. This is someone who approached us, who wants to build a facility here. They've already been in negotiations with, we believe that they've already been in negotiations with Appalachian Power and with the PJM grid about this location. And they chose this location based upon the grid needs, not based upon any economic development incentive or anything else that Botetourt County did. It's simply an artifact of there being a particularly good piece of property that's right next to the Cloverdale substation.
Fair as you were.
In a sense, yes. There are, and I would turn now to Mrs. Pendleton. I believe that as far as the zoning, are there any discretionary approvals that they need at this point? They've already gotten them, correct? They have not. Okay, but those are non-discretionary, right? So they have a right to put this facility there. Just the question that we're currently negotiating with them is the details of what it's going to look like and what, for lack of a better term, what their tax bill is going to be. This particular mechanism is specifically put together by the General Assembly in order to allow localities and these providers to, in a way, negotiate what their tax bill is going to be. And as I said, probably your best option for the run of these facilities is going to be a revenue share instead of using traditional property taxation.
Some of the motivation for that. Vary that much.
Well, machinery and tools don't, but the bulk of these facilities, again, if you're looking at, let's say we wind up with 5 of them located right next to the Cloverdale substation. In the bulk of situations, they're actually going to be taxed by the State Corporation Commission. So the State Corporation Commission does that assessment, and they use a depreciation table as well as a complicated model having to do with that weighted average age of the different pieces of that facility. So if they replace one battery module, that changes their weighted average age model. So there's a lot less predictability, both from their perspective and from our perspective in the state corporation commission taxation model than there is in a revenue share model. They come back to the locality. So it's just for public service corporation taxes, it's just like it is for the Cloverdale substation. APCO reports all of that machinery, all of that property, everything to the State Corporation Commission. The State Corporation Commission decides how much it's worth. The Department of Taxation then does a study every year to determine the ratio of what our real estate tax assessments here in Botetourt County is to what they think the true fair market value of the property in our county is, which that can vary anywhere between 80 to 95%. So then what the Commissioner of the Revenue does is he gets back those values from the State Corporation Commission for the whole Cloverdale substation. He multiplies that times the assessment ratio, which is the ratio of our assessment to the fair market value, multiplies that times our real estate rate, not our machinery and tools or personal property rate. It's the real estate rate. And that is what the tax bill that we send to APCO for that substation is. Yes, sir.
Not reflective.
Correct. And add in that it's 80% exempt for the first 5 years. So you don't even get most of that value. So you get to that, the end number. So Chris Booth gets to that end number and then he knocks 80% of it off before he sends the bill for a battery storage facility.
Did we advertise for it? Probably would.
Just at the next board meeting, is that what you?
I think
there's no issue. So at the October board meeting, is that what you would? Okay.
We think the.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have just a quick question. Actually, I have two. Seems to me that the hearing will involve one of two choices, doing traditional machinery and tools taxation versus revenue sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't understand the, how the citing agreement, it seems that it's it's more closely associated with the revenue sharing option. Why is that? Or is it independent of that?
It's independent. It's an independent process that frankly falls somewhere in between Cole's processes and the tax and Chris Booth's processes, the tax and the land use processes. The short answer is that it's a lot easier to negotiate a citing agreement if you know up front what the revenue stream is going to be.
And that would be a negotiation between us and the owner.
The company, yes.
So if they know what their obligations are, they're more likely to engage in a citing agreement that they can predict as well.
Correct. I mean, they have to do a citing agreement, but it becomes a lot easier for both of us to be talking from a position of knowledge of what the future revenue stream looks like, rather than being in the position of, in some ways, I have a decent idea of what this SCC's depreciation schedule is going to look like, at least for the next couple of years. It could change. They can change at any time. There's also the fact that their weighted average age of the facility is going to change over time. And their prediction of what the value of different things might be, might change over time. And so it's a lot harder for everybody to negotiate what a revenue, what it might be that they would make let's say a per megawatt hour additional payment after 10 years of operation to the county. And let's say that we negotiated that that was going to be X thousands of dollars, that they were just going to make a payment because we've hosted them for 10 years in our county. Well, if we have a pretty good idea what the tax bill is going to be for them in year 10 because we've adopted revenue share, then me and Gary and their project manager and their lawyer, we can sit down and we can have a really fruitful discussion about what that payment at that time is going to be. If instead we're saying, well, here's our wild guess about what the State Corporation Commission might think this is worth in 10 years, that's a much more difficult conversation to have.
Okay. Then, this number, $1,400 per megawatt.
Uh-huh.
Is that total capacity? I mean, the number of megawatts, is it the total capacity, or is it going to be like what comes in or what goes out? Like, is that a calculated value, or is it the total capacity of that facility?
It's based on what they call plate capacity, which means the maximum permitted capacity. With battery facilities, they actually measure their ability in megawatt hours. So for instance, a 100 megawatt 4-hour facility can hold 100 megawatts for 4 hours, but there are also 100 megawatt 2-hour facilities. The General Assembly set this up so that it was $1,400 per megawatt hour, regardless of per megawatt AC, regardless of how many hours it was, because the General Assembly basically wants to encourage people to build 4-hour facilities rather than 2-hour facilities.
So it doesn't matter what comes in, what goes out. It is $1,400 times the capacity of that particular facility.
Correct.
Thank you.
Have you seen this?
I have. So this has been going on with solar facilities for several years. I would say about 5 years. They've been this revenue share and siting agreement process has been going on with solar facilities. Solar facilities, there's kind of the math works out differently, which is why we haven't made the same recommendations with respects to solar. However, battery is relatively new. It's only in the last 9 to 12 months that you've started to see a lot of battery facilities getting proposed. And part of that has to do with increases in technology. Part of it has to do with the fact that PJM, our regional grid, is a train wreck, and they've been having a lot of trouble getting battery storage facilities permitted to interconnect to the grid. Anyway, this has only just started coming into play. However, the two localities that have already, there are 2 localities that have already negotiated a number of these agreements. And they have both opted to do a revenue share with negotiated payment under a siting agreement. I represented one of those localities, so as their outside counsel on their negotiations. So I have some familiarity with how it works out. And one of the things that, as I say, we had was, this was the facilities we were talking about would have fallen under machinery and tools tax. But even despite the predictability of machinery and tools tax, we found that it was a lot easier to do the math and figure out what our negotiation was going to be if we used the revenue share.
Thank you.
Well, so they tend to be all over the place, and I should have known that you were going to ask me that question. Let me open up my little spreadsheet here. So I have done several of these, I've gone out and kind of gotten all the ones that I could get hold of. For the city of Lynchburg, they had two, both of which were 15 megawatt facilities. For both of those, the company promised annual training for fire EMS, as well as one of them was going to be a total of 55,000 in payments, and the other was going to be 65,000 in payments. And those were going to be one at site plan approval, one at receiving a CO, one at receiving interconnect or something like that. It was spaced out that way. The city of Chesapeake had a 100 megawatt facility where they only got 11,760, but they wanted a lot of site mitigation that was going to be pretty expensive to do because it was not nearly, it was in a bad location in Chesapeake. Bad location from the land use planning standpoint in terms of being right next to parks and houses and things like that. Good location as far as Dominion was concerned because it was right next to a substation. So there were different considerations in that particular scenario. I think that I certainly don't want to speak for Mrs. Pendleton too much. I do it often enough. But I think in our situation, because of the location of the facility, at least in this particular instance of the one that we have coming down the pipe right now, it's in a situation where there isn't going to need to be a lot of site mitigation that we're going to be negotiating into the siting agreement. So it's going to be more oriented toward the financial aspects of the transaction. I hope that made sense, even though I talked around the point a little bit. That 55,000 range was for a 15 megawatt facility. So I would guess it would be more than that, probably a fair amount more than that.
It's two things. One, I follow. Second thing is.
I think we already.
I'll move that we. Second part.
Revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Do you mean the siting agreement? The siting agreement itself is a separate negotiation, and that will actually come before you at a separate time. There will actually be a public hearing on it.
So it would not be part of it.
Okay. Further discussion?
Aye.
It was. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for boring you so much with that, but
It's better than FOIA.
don't dare me.
In times past, wanted to let you know that all of the plats that document the right of way and the construction easements for road improvements have been submitted, and they are tentatively approved pending the approval of the offsite road construction plans. And so again, there's several different components that overlap and have to match each other to get to approval. However, those plats have all come in with surveyor and property owner signature. And they are pending approval of the road construction plans. So what that means is once we have the road construction plans and the on-site plans, they came in last week. They've been distributed out for third-party review at this point in time. I think that happened yesterday with a late October deadline. So the county staff and the third-party reviewers, VDOT, Fire and EMS, and will all be reviewing that submission of plans that came in. We'll be comparing those to the plats, again, ensuring that they are identical. That being said, that the right-of-way is identical to what the construction plans are. VDOT will be reviewing for all the things that VDOT reviews, and we'll continue to compare those. So should the offsite construction plans be approvable, then as a subdivision agent, I'd be able to sign off on the plats once the necessary sureties come in. So we have some progress. There still are numerous reviews to take place, thousands of pages to review, things to compare and contrast, communication to be held and happening. However, we have in our hands now all of the documents resubmitted and under our review at this time.
Thank you.
Any questions for me on any of that?
How about permitting for getting all our permits in order?
They have everything. They have their nationwide permitting, their DEQ permitting. They have that. So again, anything that we were requiring them to submit to us to document that they had secured those approvals, I believe we have that. We will again continue with this full batch of thousands of pages of information to review with the help of our third-party folks to ensure that those are all updated and accurate and reflect the most recent requirements that any other agency would require. You're welcome.
We have and I gather no one is here from schools. Is that correct?
The appointment he was talking
Gary, you in a position to explain this? And just so everybody knows what we're talking about, this is consideration of approval of school division capital reserve funds for the purchase of 4 new school buses at a total cost of $483,000.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lockaby saved me with a paper copy, so thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. What we have here is the school division had asked for a capital reserve fund spend and to purchase some buses that they were in need of. It'd be 1 77 passenger, 2 65 passenger, and 1 special needs bus for a total of 4. And those would be a total cost of $483,467.98. Those requests normally come to me because these are capital expenditures. And the board in the past has given me the authority to authorize those up to $150,000 per request. And so this obviously is well above that. And that's the reason why you're seeing it today. The school board actually has the money associated with this. As you can see that the current balance of the school division's capital reserve is $2,109,541.77. And with this expenditure, the balance would end up being $1,626,073.79. So the money, there is no request for additional appropriations of money. It's just for the expenditure of their money to purchase these buses.
Okay.
Any questions?
Go ahead. Somebody gonna say something? Go ahead.
Is this a subset of the 10 or is this in addition to the 10?
So, Mr. Michael, the way that the budget was appropriated this year, it ended up having capital and operations all combined together. So this is actually something that the school board is asking for. And so I don't really know the answer to your question.
Okay.
If they are living with only 4 buses out of the 10 have requested, or if there are more on the way.
Okay, thank you.
I think it would probably be based upon how much money they ended up having and how they judiciously spend that money.
I'll move for approval of school division capital reserve funds being used for the purchase of 4 new school buses at a total cost of $483,467. I make that motion.
Second.
Is there further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? That's approved. We have one appointment. This is consider a new alternate for the private provider representative or CPMT to replace Trista Thompson, who left employment with DePaul. Andrea Saborn is the new employee and is willing to serve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That appointment shall be made. Next, we have citizen comments, and you may recall we had one at the very beginning of the meeting, which belongs at the end. And now we have it. Philip Brodsky, are you still here? Sir, if you'd come forward and share your comment, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Is that on? Yes. That works. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and board members for letting me speak to something that I know has been hashed, rehashed, and everything else. But once in a while, something comes up that you just have to talk about. I've been a resident of Botetourt County since 1958. The year that my father moved the family business, Scripture Truth Book Company here, and we've been in business all these years still. So we have a history with Botetourt County, I think. Maybe not, we're not the first families or anything, but and my wife and I have paid real estate taxes in this county since 1965. So we have understood how things have to go. But when I got the tax bill this week, I just had to come and say something. Our residents had an increase of $69,900 in the assessment. That was an increase of 38%. I think maybe that's the magic number, because I have another resident that is a double wide rental home that was built in 1977. that increased to $83,700. Now, I've been told by insurance agents that those things depreciate with age. And that was another 38% increase. And the total taxes on both of these dwellings increased by 22%. That's a pretty big jump, I think. But anyway, I just had to come and say something. I know you've heard it all. I appreciate the work you do. You are the elected officials of our county. We elect you folks to look out for our interests as well as the county. And I think I may be speaking for the silent majority tonight, because I think there's a lot of people that are really upset with the taxation that has been placed upon us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prosky. Thank you for your patience.
I think I did it less than 3 minutes too.
Brings us to board member comments. Anything from board members?
Mr. Chair, if I may. One of the that brought up earlier was to recommend the staff to find some dates to bring the Board of Supervisors as well as the Planning Commission together to kind of discuss some of the past and future zoning items we have in front of us and take a look at what we had in the past. And just getting us back together. It's been a long time since we had a meeting together. I'd certainly like to have that option to do so. So if we can have kind of staff find some dates that might work out, get in touch with us.
We could do that. The last time we did it, it wasn't with the Planning Commission, but it was in February, March, I think, wasn't it? First quarter. The last strategic planning meeting we had.
Right. And this one just would be the planning and zoning,
Hmm.
just with the planning, zoning and us together.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea and it's timely. So, Gary, can we ask that you all take a look at possible dates and locations?
We will look at that and see if we can come up with some dates between the Planning Commission and the board.
Okay, thank you. Well, folks, I believe that takes us to the conclusion of the meeting. Is there anything else? Other business to come before this body?
Board member
Oh,
comments.
I assume. Any other board member comments?
I'm good.
Not anybody to talk to.
Okay. Okay, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Recess.
Recess.
It is a recess technically. Yeah, we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock this afternoon. So we're in recess.
Wish we could have done that in this first session. That would have been. Yeah, I don't know about this, folks.